Hey fam, what's good? What's good? I hope that you're well and keeping safe. Welcome back to another one. Welcome back to another one. I hope you all had an amazing week. I hope you all are well and keeping safe. Right, over the course of last week, I did not feel my best, and that's why I didn't make any breakdowns. Right, but as if now I'm all good, all better. And to those who are sick, I hope you get well soon. Right, and take care of yourself. Right. So another big week for us coming this week when it comes down to the Nasdaq. So let's do a nice little breakdown. Let me share my thoughts with each and every single one of you. Right, once again, you don't need to go with my analysis, my bias whatsoever. This is just simply me sharing my outlook. All right, so starting off from our monthly time frame, we can see that we still do have 23 days and 1 hour for this candle to find itself closing, as this is, you know what, there's a lot can there's a lot that can find itself happening within 23 days and 1 hour when it comes down to the Nasdaq, right? And the only magnet that I'm currently having on my monthly time frame will be this inverse fee value gap we have found ourselves creating right over here, right? And if we are gonna find ourselves closing quite bullish, then we will create a new fresh fee value gap right over there, which will serve as the new magnet which we are finding ourselves using, right? So that we can have somewhat of a shift for a potential continuation move back towards the upside, right? And that's literally it when it comes down to the monthly time frame. Let's scale all the way down to our weekly time frame and see what is up. Now, market sentiment is still indicating that our bulls is still in control, right? However, we the longs, right? The long contracts has been taken off the table, meaning people who have found themselves going long term, right, are starting to find themselves taking some profits, right? So we can see somewhat of an actual reversal finding itself coming through. However, the net positions is still pointing at the bullish side, right? So this simply means that overall structure, we are still bullish, right? And looking at our weekly time frame, we can see that we have left a beautiful BOB right over there, right? And this BOB will be my magnet which I will have my eye out on for this week, right? So that we can see somewhat of a shift back into it for a further continuation move back towards the upside, right? Because ultimately, hey, if we can see the Nasdaq have a closure below this BOB, which we have found ourselves creating right over here, we will be changing market structure from this bullish market back into a bearish market, right? And then this BOB will serve as an area of supply to where we'll just wait for somewhat of a retest for a further continuation move back towards the downside, right? But as if now I'm just simply finding myself following market structure, following what price is presenting to me, right? And that is a simple test for a further continuation or a potential further continuation move back towards the upside, right? Magnets above price, all I currently do have is my buy side liquidity right over here, right? There's no other magnets, unfortunately, which we can find ourselves using to be like, hey, this is a potential area to where we can have somewhat of an actual shift back towards the downside from, right? And that is it when it comes down to our weekly. Let's shift down to our daily time frame and see what is up, right? So few weeks ago, we have found ourselves boxing out this area right over here, as it is serving as an area of supply, right? We can see we had a beautiful tap within it. We had a shift back towards the downside. Currently, we can see that we are back into our area of supply, right? And this is indicating to me that, you know what, there's a strong possibility for us having a further continuation move back towards the upside when it comes down to the Nasdaq on our daily time frame, right? Because even just looking at this candle, we can see that we have little to no wick when it comes down to this candle, right? Basically showing us that our bulls was in control, right? They basically have found themselves flexing their muscles and just simply push price towards the upside, right? And above price on the daily time frame, however, I can find myself boxing out somewhat of a magnet, right? Somewhat of a magnet. Let me do the following. Look at this inversion fee value gap lining up with this fee value gap right over here is already tested. Check this out. Look at that. Once, twice. Currently, we are back within that area right over there, right? The second area on our daily time frame will basically be this area right over here, this inversion fair value gap we have created. If I can extend it to the left hand side, we can see it is also lining up with a previous area of resistance, right over there. Boom. Okay, so this can be a strong area to where we can potentially see the Nasdaq find itself hitting back into and have somewhat of a rejection from, right? But as of now, I would like to see us have somewhat of a pushback towards the downside before having that actual shift back towards the upside, right? And on our 4-hourly time frame, right, all I will find myself doing is just simply box out potential magnets, right? And starting from the lows of our box, and then I will work myself back up. All right, so looking at our lows, we can box out this up close candle right over there, which will come through as an area of demand. All right, it will come through as an area of demand. Let me do that, and let me just give this a different color. Boom, right? An area of demand. Okay, looking at above price, can you see this candle over here is also acting as an area of demand. We can see we had a closure above, came back for the retest, we had a beautiful shift back towards the upside, right? I am currently seeing that, hey, we have some sweet turning points. Look at that. Look at that. So I will find myself grabbing a trend line from here all the way through just like that, right? All the way through just like that. All right, so my trend line is now basically finding itself also lining up within that weekly BOB we have found ourselves creating, right? So if I can see somewhat of a change in market structure on our lower time frame, I will basically aim to take price back into our ascending trend line as we have over here, right? But as I can see, these candles right over here, their wicks is quite relatively equal, so I will expect somewhat of an actual upside momentum, maybe take out buy side liquidity, wait for somewhat of a change in market structure, and then take price all the way back into my trend line, right? If we can see a closure below the trend line, I'll wait for somewhat of an actual retest and see if we can potentially find ourselves visiting this beautiful area of demand as we have found itself boxed out as we have it boxed out right over there, right? So really simple analysis for this week, right? Since sentiment is still indicating some longs, I will find myself still looking for some overall longs, right? But keep in mind that our longs, they are also finding themselves taking their profits, so we can see a potential downwards momentum when it comes down to price, right? Before seeing a further continuation move back towards the upside, right? But ultimately, what I would like to see happen on the Nasdaq is have somewhat of an actual shift back towards the downside, back into our BOB. Doesn't necessarily have to be all the way back down, back into our area of demand, right? But at least back into the BOB. I'll then wait for somewhat of a change in market structure to be looking for some beautiful long opportunities, right? And that right there is my outlook when it comes down to the Nasdaq. Let me know in the comment section, are you long, are you short when it comes down to the Nasdaq? I am curious to know. It's me, your boy D. I'm gonna see y'all in the next one. I'm out.